It's not too often in life that you get a do-over of a major experience that you had or period of your life. But now, as I am entering into graduate school 20 years, pretty much 20 years after I finished my undergraduate degree, I basically am kind of getting a do-over, which is pretty cool because now 20 years into my life, I have a lot more different perspective on how I conduct myself in the world and how I navigate through certain experiences. And while my undergraduate degree wasn't a disaster by any means, I was very successful with it. I don't regret anything of it, but it definitely was extremely stressful for a multitude of reasons. And not to say that going into a challenging goal won't produce some amount of stress. I, again, have a different lens through which I see things, to where I'm going to, I think, mitigate a lot of the stress that I compounded into my life during that period. So I'm going to share these things with you today. I have 7 points of new perspective that I am sort of setting the intention now before I even start school. I don't start school till September, but I'm sort of meditating on this and setting the intention of sort of the energy I want to embody throughout this experience as I curate it. Because if you've listened to any of my videos in the past, you know that I am a firm believer in co-creating your life and being in the driver's seat in your life and not letting life just happen to you. That doesn't mean being a control freak. There's lots of things out of your hands that you cannot control, but minding your own vibration and sort of curating your energy is within your control. So I'm going to share this today. Whether you're considering going back to school, or you're in school right now, or you're just considering going into any new endeavor in life, I think these are sort of general perspectives that can help navigate through any big experience or change. So here we go. What are they? Number 1, slow living. My undergraduate experience was nothing short of insanity. If you're newer to my channel, you may not know I was training to make the United States Olympic team in synchronized swimming while going to university full time. So that meant, on top of just my studies full time, I was studying business at Santa Clara University. I was also in the pool 35 hours a week doing intense, grueling training. And on top of that, our club, it's very strange. We owned a bingo hall as a nonprofit, but kind of random, but it's like how it's kind of a common thing in the nonprofit world. The bingo, all the proceeds from the bingo hall funded all of our international travel and expensive competition, like fancy routine suits and competition fees and blah, 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 all of that. Every family had to work one, but since my family didn't live there, I had to work for myself. So I was doing that on top of my studies and the sort of nothing short of militant training I was doing in the pool. And then on top of that, my senior year, I also needed to work at Starbucks for extra money. So I was sleeping, by the time I was doing my senior thesis, I was sleeping like 2-3 hours a night sometimes. Sometimes I would be up all the way till 5 a.m. writing a paper and then realize, oh, I need to go to practice, and just wouldn't sleep at all that night and would just keep a Red Bull by the side of the pool. It was absolute insanity. And on the summertime, I didn't really get a break because I was on the United States national team, and that we trained 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, yes, 60 hours a week in the pool. So that really didn't leave a lot of room for summer playtime or reset. I think I got like 4 weeks off each year in August, and that was about it. So my undergrad degree, while nothing about that is victimhood, I chose to do all of that. Swimming was a huge priority for me. It was honestly a bigger priority than school, but my dad was like, you can go to school and swim, or you can go to school. You have to go to school no matter what. So I'm blessed my father supported me through school, but the journey, while I chose to do both of those, at this stage in my life, I would never take on that schedule again because I was incredibly stressed out and burnt out every single day and in tears a lot of the time because it was just so much pressure, and I never had 1 ounce of free time to myself. I was, like I said, studying till the 11th hour, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 5 a.m. some days, and busting my butt in the pool about 5 to 6 hours, Monday through Friday. Saturday practices were 8 hours. Sometimes we had to practice on Sunday too, because our coach said, well, we're just not good enough and the meet's coming up, so you're gonna practice on Sunday too. And so it just was a never-ending cycle of extreme stress for really all 4 years. And while like I said, I don't regret that. This time around, I am not going to be doing that at all. I am going to try and just go to school. I am planning on making a video about sort of my financial plan for grad school and how minimalism fits into that. I'm tossing around ideas on that. Let me know in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in, but just a short sort of nutshell. I am going to be not taking out student loans and actually living off of my savings for this entire endeavor. I am going to school in Canada, and as a student at the university, I am granted a work permit to work up to like 25 hours a week, which is fantastic. But I'm going to try and not use that. I'm going to try and just devote 100% of my time to my studies and have the free time to actually be able to write a paper without being panicked, or study for a test at normal hours instead of 2 a.m., or be able to go to a workshop or guest speaker if that's part of the program, or to be able to just rest. I'm not a big nap person. I can't really nap, but just to be able to incorporate the slow living that has become in the past years of my life, the past 3, 4, 5 years that I've shared on this channel, how important it is for me to have silence and stillness and slowness and meditation and time to rest and rejuvenate. Nothing of which happened in my undergraduate. That is going to be first and foremost priority as I do my graduate studies. It is a short program. It's 8 months and then a 4-month internship. So it's just a year. So it is going to be quite intense with the learning modules being so compact, but which is all the more reason it's so important to slow down and nourish myself when I do have the time, because that's going to let my brain recharge, my emotions and my spirit and my nervous system recharge. So when it does come crunch time of I've got an exam due or a paper due or a project or whatnot, I'm not going to feel so burnt out and overwhelmed, and just sort of calmly and methodically get things done. So I am very much looking forward to being able to just be a student instead of a student and a working professional and someone trying to make the Olympic team. Having just the one thing on my plate, I think is going to be a much more enjoyable and balanced experience. So slow living throughout this whole process, and that's going to be a daily practice. That is point number 1. Number 2, non-competition / non-having to prove myself. Obviously, there was the sort of black and white thing of I was a competitive athlete. So that's, again, it's what I was choosing to do at that time. But with school specifically, I very much in my younger years, and I've shared this in some other videos, I very much had my self-worth tied to my achievements and my results. And that's not going to say that I'm not going to try hard in grad school. That would be very silly. I'm going to put my best foot forward and give my best self in every single endeavor that I take on, whether it's a test or a project or a speech or whatever. I'm always going to be putting my best self forward, but not with the attachment of I have to get this certain result or I don't have value. It's a very different mindset of I just want to give my best self, but I know that I have something to offer, versus inherently thinking you're totally worthless and just working your butt off to get some sort of result to get some sort of worth. That's how I felt in my younger years, whether it was results at competitions for swimming or having to get that A+ on my paper or my test or whatever, or just having to even give a certain energy in class. There's almost a neediness behind that of having to prove yourself so much and just seeking validation from the external, whether it is from a feedback on a grade or verbal feedback from a professor or from my coaches. It was definitely worse in my competitive synchronized swimming realm, because I was so much more passionate about swimming than school, to be honest, because I've shared this in other videos. I was in business school and not super passionate about it, but I worked really hard to get good grades because that's my personality type, but I wasn't necessarily passionate about what I was learning. But with swimming, it was so tied to my heart, and I was so there was just such a tight relationship with my coaches that it did come into the shadow side of competition, to where I just was clawing for validation and approval, and that did carry over into my studies. But now, as a much older woman who's done a lot of inner work to learn how to love myself, and that's, it's not the golden pot at the end of the rainbow. That in and of itself is a daily practice. But in general, I'm in a much better place to where I know my worth. I know I have something of value to add, and I can of course always grow and get better, but I'm not going to be clawing for validation in my studies, and I'm just going to give my very best and know that my best is enough, and know that if I'm not the best, i.e. like top of the class or whatever, that's totally okay. I'm not there to compete with my classmates. I'm not there to win valedictorian or whatever, which I don't even think they do valedictorian for grad school. Someone write in the comments, like, I literally don't know that, but it doesn't matter. I don't care. The only person I'm competing with is myself, and in a healthy way of, I know what my limits are and I know what I'm capable of, and I'm going to give my very best each day, which that'll fluctuate depending on where I am in my emotions, what's going on in my life, where I'm in my cycle, what my energy level is, what's happening in the world, blah, blah, blah. Just the barometer is always going to be shifting, but I know what my best feels like, and I'm going to show up with that every day. And whatever results come from that is not going to affect how I feel about myself. And that's definitely something I would recommend anyone take into their life with whatever, it's not just school or competitive sports, with it, whatever you're doing. Just show up with your best self, and when you're giving your best, and that's enough. And if you get positive feedback, wonderful. If you get constructive feedback to grow, that's also wonderful. And if you get not so great feedback, then it's a signpost of different directions you can take, but also it's not something you have to take personal and degrade yourself on. It's just a reflection of work, but if you gave your best, then that's the win right there. That's the A+. Point number 3. I can't read my writing here. Let's get this a little closer. Engaging. Sorry about that. Engaging in more campus activities and connections. As I said, my schedule was insane in my undergrad, and so I made no friends on campus. My first year I lived in the dorms, but then as it became very apparent with my schedule of having to wake up at 5 or 5:30 in the morning and go to swim practice all day, if there were drunk people running around and banging on doors at 2 a.m., it was not a healthy environment for me to be in. So I did move off campus my sophomore year through the rest of my studies, and then I went to 2 parties total and 0 games the entire time. Because as I said, there was literally no time. If I was not in class, I was in the pool, or I was at work, or I was feverishly doing homework at home. There was just literally no time for a social life. And if you, again, are familiar with my videos, I've learned now that I am a lot more introverted, and I don't drink anymore, haven't for years, I don't party. However, human connection and being in a new country and being on a campus and having a huge graduate community, there's 11,000 students, it's absolutely an opportunity to meet really cool people and connect with really great things that are happening on campus. The campus that I'm going to, the school that I'm going to, has amazing sort of just a lot of different events going on that are very tied to my value system of just environmentalism, of minimalism, even of rights for Indigenous and First Nations people, and just coming back to the land type of movements, and lots of amazing speakers that are coming in, and just there's going to be a lot of opportunity to engage with a totally new network of people that's been outside of the realm of what I've been interacting with. And I'm very much excited to do that. Does that mean I'm going to be socializing all day, every day? Absolutely not, because that's not my personality type. But I am absolutely open to having new experiences and connecting with just a whole new circle of people that are probably going to be very like-minded. And I'm very international as well, people from all over the world. So I'm very excited to be doing that. And again, if you're moving somewhere new or starting somewhere new, it is good to get outside your comfort zone. And again, you don't have to go into a realm of unhealthy. You have to know what's right for you. For me, socializing all day, every day is not going to be good for my slow living practices, but getting outside of my comfort zone and meeting new people who have common interests from all over the world, that's absolutely a healthy thing to do. So I am going to be engaging in that. Number 4, nourishing myself. When I was in my undergrad, I was not vegan, I was vegetarian. I had been vegetarian since I was little, but I wasn't the best vegetarian. And because I definitely did not cook for myself, I had no time. So it was a lot of like frozen dinners and a lot of eating on the go, eating in my car, or just eating on the side of the pool, and which is not good. And I was a very heavy coffee drinker back then, I don't regret that. Like, I literally probably would have failed out of school if I didn't have coffee to keep me going, just because my schedule was so nuts. And I would do things like eat a Taco Bell cheese quesadilla or In-N-Out grilled cheese or whatever, or sometimes really badly undereat because I was too stressed out to eat, or we were, unfortunately, there was a lot of pressure in competitive synchronized swimming to be thin. So it was subversively kind of ingrained in us to very much watch what we eat and to hold back when possible. And a lot of us very much did get into really unhealthy, restrictive behaviors. And then it would end up in sort of binging out on the weekend because we were starving because we just swam 40 hours in a week. So that's all, it's okay. That's all part of history and part of growth and part of what I was supposed to go through. But now, as someone who's been vegan for 10 years and very much prioritized being healthy in my body and learning what nourishes me and gives me energy, that is going to continue to be a focus. That's never not a focus of my life. My body is my temple, and I want to nourish it in the best way possible. And I'm very excited to see how much easier it will be to get through studies and stressful circumstances while being properly nourished and not sleep deprived. So nourishment is not just what goes into your body, though that's one of the most important things. That also includes proper sleep, which again, I will have a lot more ability to have, getting proper outdoor time and sunlight. Sunlight, I will admit, I am a little nervous about this because it is a very gray and rainy winter where I'm going. I will see much less sun than I did in San Diego, but it's still, getting outside and getting daylight is still healthy for you. So even if it's raining, I'll go walk in the rain. I don't care. I love walking in the rain. You just put a proper rain jacket on. It's fine. Moving your body, that's important. But again, the slow living and meditation and just nourishing myself with taking breaks when I need to and putting proper fuel into my body and not being completely caffeine addicted or reliant. I don't drink coffee every day anymore. That's going to make a big difference, I think, in my brain power and in my nervous system's ability to take on the stress that I am having. So certainly, I do have some what I eat in a day videos up. As I've said before, I don't prescribe a specific, I'm vegan for ethics, hands down. I never eat animal products, but as far as how to vegan, that's where I don't prescribe a specific diet because you have to listen to your body and figure out what works for you. But I do put up my meals as simple ideas for things that you can try and see if they work for you. But I'm very excited to get through this, to see how this experience goes while being properly nourished, rested, and having self-care at the forefront of the whole experience. I think it's going to be a lot easier. Which brings me to number 5. This is a big one, trusting myself. I have never had an issue with work ethic. I'm a classic A-type kid. Even like as a little like elementary school kid, I would just be feverishly doing homework and make sure everything's perfect and everything's right. Work ethic has never been something I had to learn how to do. It's just honestly naturally wired in me. What I did need to learn how to do is trust myself, because even though I was a workaholic as early as like 10, I didn't trust myself. I had very low self-esteem and very low self-worth. And so I even remember I would say, I had this like catchphrase I would say to people like, oh, I'm not smart, I just work hard. And That's really sad. Not to say like, oh, I'm so smart now, but I do have a better respect for my mental capabilities. Of course, we can always grow and get better, but it took a long time and a lot of work, and that was basically the bulk of my 30s. And it's definitely, again, like I said, with any growth process, it's a daily practice, but in general, my general embodiment of self-worth and trust and believing in myself is in a way different place than it was in my teens and early 20s. And it just is more grounded in, I understand my capabilities, I know my worth, I know my value, and I trust myself to take on something difficult and be able to see it to fruition, to see it to completion. I remember I would have so much stress in my studies, especially because it's not that I procrastinated, it was just, again, like I said, my schedule was so crazy, I didn't have enough time to do anything. I would just skim through pages and hopefully somehow, luckily I have photographic memory. I would just skim through 200 pages of philosophy and like just write out a paper on it and somehow get a B+ or an A- and like without having really actually read it. And I would it was kind of like on a prayer that I was getting through papers and tests and whatnot, because one, didn't have the time, but two, I really didn't trust myself. And that was a big problem in swimming too. Even though I worked my butt off, I really didn't think I was good enough to get through anything I was taking on. And it's sad that that's the case, but again, I think all of our journey is never a mistake. And that experience as a swimmer, a competitive swimmer, having no self-esteem, actually ended up making me a really great coach, because I understood what my students needed to hear that I necessarily didn't really get to hear when I was younger, that would help them believe in themselves. And that sort of became my mission. And that was a very healing experience. And it filtered into academics as well. It's just a lot of self-talk. And I even experienced it when I wrote the sort of admissions essay for this program. The default old school me kind of came up like, oh, how am I gonna write this paper? And I really want to get in this program, and how am I gonna? And then I did a meditation and said, no, I know that I have the full capabilities to express myself in the right way for this. And part of trust comes with letting go of expectations. When I applied for this program, I said, okay, I know this is really in alignment with what I want. And I think I'm very capable and would be able to do great at this program. So I'm going to give my best into this sort of application essay, which a lot of the admission was weighted on. But I let go of this attachment of, oh my God, if I don't get into this program, my life is over. It's just, well, if it's meant to be, it will be. And it ends up that it was meant to be. I got in. But when I did that meditation and wrote the essay from this space of, I trust myself and I believe in myself and I'm capable enough to do this, the essay just sort of like flew out of me very fluidly, very easily. I did a meditation and I just wrote all the bullets, and then I went to the library a couple days later and just wrote it so much easier than I wrote any paper in my undergrad. I've always been a decent writer, but again, 20 years ago, it was like pulling teeth because I was just so unsure of myself. Whereas now I have much more, a deeper faith and understanding in my mental capabilities and a respect for the passion I have and how those merge together to create what I want to create. So I'm very much it's still going to be a challenge because this degree is so far out of the realm of anything I've studied, but I'm going into it, and again, this will be a daily practice, but I'm going into it saying, you know what, I've got this. This is going to be hard and it's going to be challenging, but it's not outside of the realm of what I'm capable of. And I'm just going to calmly and collectively apply myself and I will get shit done. So trusting yourself, whether that's anything you're taking on in life, doing the work to come to that place where you trust yourself, it's going to give you a very different experience. Which brings me to number 6. This is kind of in tandem with that, but staying in the moment. I have done so much work and will continue to do work for the rest of my life because it is mental sanity and feeling calm, like peace, and freedom. Those are my highest values. And I had none of that when I was younger. I was so ridden with anxiety and I had so much on my plate, which that didn't help. But even if I had less on my plate, I would have had probably the same amount of stress and anxiety because I just didn't know how to be in the present moment. And my mind was always all over the place thinking, what if, and not trusting myself, not trusting life, not trusting the universe, not trusting God, not trusting the process, not just thinking that each moment of each day I need to be on edge and my mind's going crazy. And of course I was drinking all this coffee, which made it 10 times, million times worse. But now understanding the value and the sacredness of staying in the moment and not worrying about what's going to happen in school tomorrow or on Friday or next week or next month or 6 months from now, but just focusing on what am I doing right now? What needs to be done in this moment? And then do it. And then next hour, next minute, whatever, next day, okay, what am I doing? Oh, focus on that. Not being, if you look at the trajectory of everything that needs to get done in the next 6 months or a year, it can be extremely overwhelming. And I've definitely, had moments even with this whole application process of like, oh my gosh, I have to do all this immigration paperwork and my work permit, my study permit, and finding me housing and, figuring out how to move and blah, blah, and like, even with that, it's the default is to look at all those things, and our brains are wired to see danger and problems, but it's not really a tiger chasing you. Organization helps, but just staying in the moment. Okay, what do I need to get done today? What do I need to get done in this hour? And then just do it. And then focus on the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And when you approach it that way, it is just a lot calmer and more methodical. So that's definitely going to be a daily focus and practice for myself, but I do think I have a much better handle on that ability to stay present and not see things as a countdown. This is a big one too. Because my schedule was so insane in my undergrad, I was literally just in survival mode, and honestly most days kind of felt like hell. And it was like, okay, I just got to make it to Friday. Okay, I just got to make it to Sunday. Oh, I have Sunday off. Oh, except maybe not because I'm doing 12 hours of homework. I just got to make it through this point in the season because the winter, or I got to make it through the rainy season. I got to make it through this meet. Got to make it through this next. And it was always just sort of this like carrot on a stick of like just trying to get to the next thing. And it turns out it was hell, but then it also went fast at the same time, and it's kind of a blur, and then it's over, and then you never get that period of time back in life. And it's such a short program. It's only 1 year. I want to savor every facet of the experience. I don't want to just hustle and get through it and oh my God, and then I can be happy. Like, no, I want to be happy. Even if I'm challenged and maybe a little bit stressed, you can still have happiness and fulfillment and presence and to have enjoyment with the challenge that you're doing in the moment. And that's definitely what I want to put into practice most in this is just enjoy the gift of this very brief experience that is going to transform my whole life and put me in a new career trajectory, but it's just 1 year and then it's never going to happen again. So I want to savor the sacredness of the experience and each new thing that the day brings. Which brings me to point number 7. This is a topic that I'm going to be brief on it because it's still something I'm very much exploring, and it's something I don't have a mastery on, and I've been considering doing a video on it, but it would definitely be more of like sort of just a discourse with you all rather than, not to say I've said many times, I'm not some guru that has everything all figured out. I don't, but I've gotten a little bit better at some things. But this topic specifically is something newer that I've been delving into, and it feels very like I could go so much deeper with it, and I feel very novice with it, and that is staying in my feminine energy, the sacred, divine, feminine energy. I know this may sound a little woo-woo for some people. If it's not your cup of tea, that's fine. And if you're male and you're not interested, cool. But if you're a male and have females in your life, it may be interesting to you. But the feminine energy, it goes so much deeper than just like, oh, feminine means wearing a flowery dress and doing this sort of activity. That's very superficial, and that's a very incorrect way to interpret it. But there are deeper feminine qualities such as receptivity, creativity, flow, and receiving that are, for most of my life, I've been very much out of tune with. Not just because I was raised exclusively by my father, though I definitely think that shaped me in certain ways, given me a lot of strength that I'm very proud and honored to have. But I definitely it's just naturally been wired in me to go after what I want and conquest and conquer, and almost this sort of mentality if I have to fight to get what I want. And not to say that women, because there's trillions of not trillions, we don't have trillions of people on the planet. There are many women that are extremely successful, and it's not to say that if you are successful that's only a masculine quality, but these are sort of finite energetic balances I'm talking about, and everyone has masculine and feminine energy within them, and it's up to you to sort of know what your own brand of femininity or masculinity is. I'm never going to be the type of woman that wants to be a homemaker, and you've seen my home, and I'm never going to want to throw dinner parties or just be decorating things in different way or doing crafts. That's just not my jam. I'm a warrior. I'm Artemis or Athena. That's my goddess archetype, and that's not wrong. Femininity doesn't look like just one thing for one person. But as I've been meditating on this a lot the past sort of year of what does my femininity feel like, because I do feel an imbalance. I do feel cut off from my sort of innate feminine energy. Not to say that it's not being completely expressed, but I do feel like because I've been on my own for so long, and I have picked such sort of audacious pathways within my career and goals, and just having to have, especially being in the restaurant energy for 10 years, which is very much like chaos and rough and physical and kind of mean sometimes. And I'm exploring this energy of what does it feel like to receive versus feeling like I need to fight for everything. What does it feel like to flow more versus feeling like I need to control everything? What does it feel like to be held, even though I am single, but like to be held by, say, the universe, or trusting life and God more, or things of that nature. So I'm going to keep that part brief, because this is, again, something I'm still just exploring, and it may be too woo-woo for some people, but let me know in the comments if you're interested in having a whole discourse video on that. You're embodying your feminine energy, because I do think as a woman, while we've come so far in the West, at least, to have more equality of opportunity for women. If I was born, say, in the 50s, or in the times when my only option was to get married and make babies, I would have had a hell of a hard time, because I'm not wired for that. I'm very grateful that as a woman in the modern age, I'm able to essentially go after anything I want. But I do think in this modern world of women having to hold so many balls up in the air, and just the sort of aggressive tenacity that is required to survive in the modern world, I do think we have gotten a little bit disconnected from our inherent feminine energy. Maybe that not everyone feels like that, that's okay, but I definitely feel like that. And so that's something I'm exploring. And so tying that into my academic experience, I'm going to be seeing if I can get through this experience in a new way, not in that I have to fight and claw my way through it and prove myself and be strong and tough, but working in those qualities of receptivity and flow and trust and creativity as I take on this new endeavor. Okay, my friends, we are at 32 minutes. It's another long one. Seems to be kind of the average. I don't know why I would ever think that I was like, oh yeah, this will probably be 15 minutes. No, it never is. But hopefully this was somewhat interesting to you, and hopefully it was applicable to if you're taking on a new endeavor, whether it is going back to school or starting school for the first time, or taking on something that's new and scary in your life. Hopefully these are some principles you can apply to make the experience more joyful and enriching, even if it is challenging. All right, my friends, thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.